This is for 3, solving quadratic equations by factoring. Right, so we're going to build on what we were working through last time with graphing. So remember that with factoring, we can decide how to factor an expression completely by using this factor flow chart. Right, this is from the very beginning of the year. First thing you want to ask yourself is, do we have a GCF, greatest common factor? If so, factor it out front. And then from there, you want to ask yourself how many terms are in the expression. If it's a binomial, you can try that using the difference of squares. If it's a trinomial, you can try the AC method or like guess and check. Right? And if there are 4 terms, you're probably going to want to try factor by grouping. If you can't do that, then it's probably not factorable. All right, so to solve a quadratic equation by factoring, here are your steps. Right? Rearrange the equation so that it is equal to 0. That is so important. Right? Then factor it completely. Set each factor equal to 0 and solve for the variable. All right, so this concept I touched on last time, but let's refresh it. Right, so if we have 2 quantities, 5u minus 8 and 4 plus u, those 2 quantities are being multiplied together here, and if they're equal to 0, then one quantity or the other has to be 0. Okay, so like think about it this way: 4 times 0 is 0. 0 times 5 is 0. One of them is equal to 0. 0 times 0 is also 0, all right? So because of this logic and this idea, all right, what we can do when we have 2 quantities that are being multiplied together, only when they're being multiplied together can we do this. We can take each factor and set it equal to 0. 5u minus 8 equals 0. 4 plus u equals 0, and then solve from there, right? So 5u equals 8, and then u equals 8/5. That is one solution. And then if I subtract 4 from both sides, u would equal -4. These are pretty straightforward, but the logic is what I'm going for here. All right, so here we have to factor first. So take a look at this, see if you can factor it on your own. Hopefully you ended up with y plus 5 times y minus 4 equals 0. If you're struggling with factoring, you just got to keep practicing until you got it. Okay. And then set each factor equal to 0. Y plus 5 equals 0. Y minus 4 equals 0, meaning that y equals -5. Y equals 4. Those are our solutions. This one, remember that we have to rearrange it first and make it equal to 0. All right. So 3w squared plus 7w. We have to subtract 6 first. And then from here we can use the AC method. All right, so take a look at what's 3 times -6. It's -18. Some options: 1 times 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. And then which of these options could we play around with adding or subtracting to give us our middle coefficient, 7w? It's going to be this, right? 2 and 9. So then let's work with that, right? 3w squared, let's rewrite it in expanded form. Minus 2w plus 9w. We want minus 2 plus 9 because -2 plus 9 is what gives us that positive 7. And then now we'll factor by grouping. I can see. I can factor out a w here. Times 3w minus 2. And then I can factor out a 3 here, right? Plus 3 times 3w minus 2 equals 0. Factor by grouping. 3w minus 2 times w minus 3 equals 0. And then now we're going to set each factor equal to 0. 3w minus 2 equals 0. W plus 3 equals 0, meaning that w would equal 2/3. W would equal -3. All right, get a little more involved here. So right off the bat, we have this multiplication happening between the quantities, so we can actually set each of these equal to 0 and then keep going. Right? V squared minus 2v minus 24 equals 0, and then 4v minus 8 equals 0. So this is a trinomial, and we actually need to factor again, all right, before we can move on. So we can factor this into v minus 6 and v plus 4, meaning that v would equal 6 and v would equal -4. But we can't forget, we still had this one up front, or excuse me, up top, right? 4v minus 8 equals 0, meaning that 4v equals 8 and v equals 2. Right? So our solutions here would be all of these. V equals 6, V equals -4, V equals 2. Last type of problem we might see with this, write a quadratic equation whose roots, meaning whose solutions, whose zeros, are -4 and 5, and whose leading coefficient is 3. Okay. So what we're going to do with these, we're trying to get from this sentence into the form 0 equals ax squared plus bx plus c. That's what we're trying to do. All right, so this leading coefficient, this has to be a 3. All right. And so what we're going to do is the following. All right, we're going to take our 3, that's our leading coefficient, and then we're going to set up our two quantities, and that's going to be equal to 0. And then what's going to go in these quantities are expressions that would give us roots of -4 and 5, right? So if x equals -4 and x equals 5, then x plus 4 would equal 0, right? By removing that 4 over. And x minus 5 would equal 0. And so these quantities, x plus 4 and x minus 5, are what I want to put here. And then to get it to standard form, we're just going to multiply out. All right, 3 times, I'm going to use FOIL, x squared minus 5x plus 4x. That would give us -x minus 20. And then to distribute, I'll just take that 3 and multiply it times everything. 3x squared minus 3x minus 60 equals 0. And that's that. All right, so take a look at your practice and let me know what questions you have.